Here, let me try something else. Okay. Let's get that ready. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for coming. Sorry for the technical delay. My name is Jim Leonard, and if you remember me from the demo scene, I was called Trickster, and I was in the demo group Hornet. If you might also know me, if you're not familiar with the demo scene, as the co-founder of MobyGames.com. But I'm not here to talk about either of those things. I'm here to talk about a waste of time I did in 2004. And it's called 8088 Corruption. To display full motion video on a really old, slow machine. So I was going to ask how many people have seen it by show of hands, but I think I'll just go ahead and show it to you. I apologize for the colors. They're probably going to be a little bit off because of the camera and everything. All right, well, okay, now we're starting to come back online here. Let me see if I can fire this up again. Ah, darn. All right, I should show this to you just so you can get an example. Let me pull the video real quick. All right, which one is it? This was supposed to play in the presentation. I think it's this. No, it's no video codec. All right, let's try one more time. All right, well, it was probably embedded into the presentation, for which I apologize. All right, well, what you're supposed to be seeing is a black and white video of footsteps moving and a 24-bit color of footsteps moving, but because the 24-bit, they both take up the same bandwidth. They both take up the same amount of disk space, memory space, whatever. But because this guy is going at 60 frames a second, you can actually tell it as footsteps walking, whereas the 24-bit color one, it almost looks like someone is just stamping up and down in place. So this is what I mean about frequency. More samples is better. So in trying to solve this problem, I started out with what looked best. I did some empirical testing and took full motion video, 60 images per second, not stuff you grab off of YouTube, because that maxes out at 30. I actually filmed stuff myself and converted it to 60, created integral divisions of that, 30, 20, 15, 12, et cetera, frames per second. Came up with 30 frames per second as the minimum acceptable quality to call it motion video. And then did the same thing for audio, and I came up with the result. 22 kilohertz is just about acceptable for something like music, and that's what you just heard. So then we moved to the output device. To determine what was possible, let me give you a small history of CGA here. CGA is a memory adapter that has a little bit of RAM on the card, and it is constantly scanning that RAM, and whatever is in that RAM is what's displayed on the screen. So essentially, however fast we can update that RAM is how fast we can change the contents of the screen. So some more empirical testing. I wrote a small assembly language routine that measured how fast the CPU can actually move data into the CGA adapter RAM, and came up with 160K of data per second moving to the CGA card. So now we take all of our results and we figure out what's possible. We found out that moving data CGA tops out at 160K, 30 frames per second is our minimum acceptable quality. Audio 2, so we subtract the audio from how much memory we can move into CGA, and we get 4.6. So our final result is 4.6K is the maximum amount of RAM we can copy each frame to stay within our 30 frames per second target. So when we research the output device, what are our options? Well, graphics modes use 16K. That's greater than 4, so that's not an option. 80 by 25 text mode uses 4K. However, 80 by 25 text mode has a problem with snow. And if this thing, sucker boots, I'll give you an example. When you write direct, the memory in CGA is not dual ported. So when you try to write directly to screen RAM, I don't know if you can see it. See how there's snow? There's all this flashing snow on the screen whenever the screen's updating. You can't use that. The video would be unwatchable. So we have only one mode left, and that's 40 by 25 text mode. So that's our final result. We have to, whatever we're going to do, if we're going to solve this, it's got to be in 40 by 25 text mode. So how the hell do you convert images to display in 40 by 25 text mode? The converter went through 3 different iterations. One was a resolution-centric approach, which was very naive, and you'll see why in a second. The second was I tried to attempt some dithering or half-toning, and that had pluses and minuses. And finally, there was a brute force linear time comparison, which worked the best. So let's give you some examples of this. The first idea was to emulate character graphics. I don't know if any of you are familiar with like the old CX or anything like that. The Spectrum displays graphics that are actually made up of 8x8 tiles. It's actually the character generator. It's text mode, but it's like a custom font. I'll have an example in a second. So I was thinking 40 by 25 text mode uses the same thing. It's 8x8 character cells. So only 2 colors are allowed per cell. And if you count out all of the individual dots that are actually displayed on screen, it comes out to 320 by 200. So this was my reasoning, that I would start with a 320-200 picture and try to map it as best I could to all the dots on the screen. Here's what ZX Spectrum stuff looks like. If you look at the zoom in on the leg, you can see it's kind of blocky, and if you go ahead and break it out, my idea was to emulate that. And the difference between the Spectrum and the IBM is that on the Spectrum, you can change all of those pixels in each block. On the IBM, you can't. So this was the basic conversion. Remap colors using the 16-color palette, determine the two most popular colors, remap it again using just the two colors, and compare to all possible character and color combinations and use the best one that matched. And I figured it's got graphics characters, it's got lines, it's got shaded characters, it should work, right? Well, the initial results weren't that great. I'll give you a second to look at those. These are the test pictures I used in determining everything. I was happy to see that some stuff was a perfect match, which makes it look almost as if you drew it.